but when he speaks, when he writes, then you would just be amazed. So he's an internal expert of UNIDO. He said that he's retired. I don't think so. He said he's enjoying his retirement or not, but up to him. But he used to be a senior researcher at INEA, the Italian Agency for New Technologies, Energy, and the Environment. So, Dr. Pasquale, the floor is yours.
Okay, it's working. Thank you, Carmela, for your introduction. First of all, I have to say that I am retired and I'm very happy of this situation. But anyway, you know that I am always happy to stay with you and to share my experience with you and everybody here in this room. I have no presentation, also because I think that the presentation that Simone did just before was very comprehensive, and that presentation gave a good idea about the future of the metallurgical industry in Italy and in all Europe. In Europe, we started with the environmental releases from metallurgical plant several years ago, mainly because of the concern for the health problems that pollutants give on the people and on the environment as a whole. So the first target was the reduction of emissions, not only the pollutants like SO2, NOx, and other chemicals that can be released from production of goods, but also for the problems that the dioxins and the UPOPs in general gave to the environment, to the human health. We started in Europe talking about this problem about 20, maybe 30 years ago. And one of the first things that we did in Europe was to put an emission limit for the dioxin emission first from the waste incinerators, and soon after for all the industrial plants, including the metallurgical facilities. And this limit was set at 0.1 nanograms per cubic meters, which is the limit which is recognized at the international level. The question regarding energy efficiency came a little bit later, but it almost started in that period. But that period is not a stringent problem, also because the cost of energy was quite low. It was not very high. But in the following years, we had also the problem of reducing the consumption of energy for two reasons. First, the economic reason, and second, for the reduction of CO2, which is a very important pollutant, which give very important problems for the climate situation. Okay, nowadays, in Europe and in Italy, we have very little problems for the emission of the dioxins. As Simone showed before, emissions from factories are below the emission limits, which is set by regulation, 0.1. Actually, the majority of facilities in Italy have emission which is around less than 0.01, so one order of magnitude lower. We have still problems for the emissions of CO2, and as Simone explained it before, we are working in that direction. Carmela said before that in Thailand, in Asian countries, situation is different because the main goal is the reduction of CO2. This is an important question, but it is important to remind that if we only pay attention to the reduction of CO2 and the energy efficiency in general, we cannot reach the results that we need for reduction of pollutants, especially for dioxin, which is a very bad devil. It's a very dangerous family of compounds that we need some particular attention for this kind of pollutants, and we need some dedicated technology for the reduction of emission of dioxins. Otherwise, we will not be able to reach emission values as low as we currently have in Europe and in Italy. Okay, I think that for now it is enough, and maybe I can answer some questions.
Grazie, Pascale. So I think you touched on a very important topic, which is policy. So in Thailand, I think they're coming up, or they already have a policy on the dioxin emissions. Of course, primarily many of the concerns would be more on the monitoring issues or capabilities of the country, and also the setting of the standards, no, or the emission limit. It's very interesting to note, for example, that Italy would have a 0.1 nanogram emission limit, while on the average, as per both your intervention, currently the emission level for many of the facilities, or at least all the utilities, are at 0.01 nanogram. So that's a very interesting success in terms of emission, but again, we address the issue now of monitoring, compliance, and of course, the analytical capability of many of the countries, plus the would maybe not factoring in still the cost associated to this for the private sector, no, for the industries themselves. So maybe we could explore that further later on, and what would be, I guess, the most efficient or the most effective modality on how dioxin monitoring would be coming up into this. But again, let's not lose sight also on the main objective of the project, not only of the project, but this discussion on really looking at the whole value chain of the scrap metal recycling now. So is it enough, for example, to just have a clean scrap? Maybe we do the intervention here. So Simone said, okay. So that would be a very interesting question. Or where do we actually then focus, no? Is it the end of pipe? Or we could also do some more possibilities and more intervention, up front, and really look at the whole value chain, and then addressing what is at the end of the pipe. So we now go to our third speaker. I think the center was actually visited by the group, by all the stakeholders